My symptoms are probably 85 to 90% better. Like I'm fully functioning human again, as far as like sleep and headaches and mental clarity. I couldn't think of words. I do something, and still this happens sometimes. Like I'll do something and forget 2 minutes later that I did it, but that was happening all the time. So the fatigue was crazy. I had headache every day for weeks on end. You know what I mean? Like it was just all the time. And then I think one of the things, it's kind of like, for me, it was like just act like everything's fine, fake it till you make it sort of thing. That's just sort of my mentality. And one of the things that got me to be like, all right, well, this isn't normal is the family. So the two kids, my husband and I had a Sunday together, which is kind of rare. We're always going in different directions. I mean, even this was right before the pandemic, I want to say, but whatever. So we had the Sunday together and ended up sleeping like 5 hours in the middle of the day. My husband was pissed, and he's usually a pretty reasonable guy. And he was like, we finally have a day together and you're sleeping. And I'm like, and then I just broke down because I'd been kind of hiding it, from work, from the family, just kind of like, and so for a year I was doing pretty well on just supplements because I'm not like let's go the traditional medicine route. And I was doing pretty well, but also at the same time, I'm going to the gym 4 to 5 times a week, doing intermittent fasting. And I had just mentioned, working out as much as I was, eating fairly decently, I was still putting on weight. Like it was slowly creeping up. So I think in the space of, the year, maybe 8 months, something like that, I put on probably like 12 pounds. And I was like, what the hell? So I started working with the nutritionist at the gym, and we were doing like weekly check-ins and, just like being so on top of it. And I was barely losing any weight. And I felt like I was kind of being questioned. Are you sure you're following the plan? And I had a breakdown. Sounds really kind of weird, but the kind of like I was so pissed that I wasn't losing weight. I went through the Wendy's drive-through and got like the worst meal in the world and just ate it. And I'm like a little bit like, excuse language about this. Like I have these friends I'm going to dinner with that are naturally thin, that will have like pecan pie after dinner, and I'm having like my spinach and boiled chicken. You know what I mean? So my level of frustration was extremely high. And I kind of started to realize like I can't keep putting myself through this. So I kind of gave up a little bit on the health aspect. I'm like, okay, whatever. At the same time, the symptoms got worse as far as the fatigue, the headaches. I did end up letting my boss know. I mean, I've been working with this guy for 12, 13 years. So like, no big deal. He trusts me, and felt for me. So, that was really cool. I had that support on that side too. So at any rate, obviously I finally got to the point where I was like, I'll just go to an actual doctor. So I got the blood work done, Hashimoto's, like immediately. They did the little scan of my thyroid even before the blood work came back, and there's little strands in it. And she's like, you have Hashimoto's. Like, we'll look and see what the blood work says. And yeah, the blood work definitely was, off. And then also realizing like part of this working with you, the lifestyle piece of it, just A-type personality, all of that. And realize that because I'm wired that way, I need more downtime than maybe most people.
Yeah.
So that day of rest on Sundays has been like super helpful. No to-do list. So I can go out and do stuff if I want to, but I also can take the option to sit around and read and nap and whatever. And my husband's on board with it. That's been huge. Like this is part of what I need, and this is what I'm going to do. So
what do you think was the major tool or intervention or thing that, or maybe there's more than one thing that allowed you to experience these change in results, or seeing these results that you just described? What do you think was the biggest contributor to that?
First and foremost, I think is the support that I surrounded myself with. Bringing you on board obviously is support. So I think one of the best things I did for myself is I have to be my own advocate. So whether I'm talking to you or my doctor or my family, I have to be able to draw boundaries and understand, okay, this piece is good for me, this piece is not good for me, like give and take. So I would say number one is just getting that support. And then obviously for me, the toolkit. So for you, it's a toolkit that you give, and I think there's certain things in there that have really worked. The taking the rest, number one, breathing. Just like I find myself doing that more often. I get up from like a stressful work call, or I get jacked up mentally. I'm like ready to go, and my mind's racing and whatever, and I'll just like, okay, my body's going to need a little bit more than, like not always letting my brain lead my life, because that's the way it's been forever, and giving my body more allowances. So we talked a lot about anger, being one of my familiar
Yeah.
sort of modes of dealing with things. So I really realized when I was looking at it that when I screw up, I have a tendency to get mad at the things around me that aren't right. So it's like this defense mechanism, right? So my anger comes in, I'm mad at this, and this, and then I can kind of bypass how I'm feeling about myself. Also realizing that anger was really kind of my default go-to when my emotions get too high. So being somebody that, again, always having 3 plans ahead of time means that I'm usually have this radar out. So I'm always like picking up on what everybody else needs. And so I get to a point where that bucket gets full, and then anger comes out because it's the only thing that would really help me separate myself from all the external stimulus, whether that's their emotional or needs physically or whatever. The other thing that I think that I've learned from you, and it's probably not the way that you intended me to learn it, but we've been doing this, I think, like you said, for about 5 months. And concurrently, I'm kind of going through, I'm 44, and I think this is maybe somewhat normal. You start to realize how you relate in the world, and the things that are mindsets that you've been around for forever that are just like nonsense. Like you're like, oh, wait a minute. This is so concurrently with me trying to figure out Hashimoto's lifestyle, how I'm relating to things. I'm also breaking down sort of like traditional thought processes that I've had. And I started to realize just recently, and I shared this on the call, that I was thinking about myself too much. And that almost becomes its own
Mm.
toxic cycle. You know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah.
only so much that I can do about who I am. You know what I mean? Before it just is its own problem that I'm focused on. And it's like focusing on the diet too much, or, hey, I want to be this whatever sort of eater, and then when I'm not, I'm trying to figure it out. Like, it's just too much mental process. Like, just toss that out. It's too much stress.
Yeah.
um and then the last piece of where I'm at, like today where I'm at is, like I said, energy is decent, but being able to stay up till like a normal time at night now, wake up in the morning and do stuff like whatever. No headaches, mostly remember what I've got going on and where my car keys are, stuff like that. I think I would have told myself to give my emotions more space, because the catalyst was, my grandmother had passed away, and then it wasn't 4 months later that my body stopped responding, right? Started putting on the weight and stuff. So now, of course, the rear view mirror is I can trace it back.
Mm-hmm.
I can say you should have given yourself more space, to grieve or to process or to celebrate, like whatever that should have been. It was like, I didn't really give myself what I needed in that 4 or 5 month period. And then when things started getting bad, I think I would have, again, give yourself space, back off, quit pushing so hard. Sometimes you push something so hard it breaks.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame myself, because I think that Hashimoto's in its own weird way is a gift. So that's weird. But
Yeah, it is.
um, much like I herniated my disc in my back. Well, it starts to hurt if I'm not active enough. So it's its own gift, because it keeps my body, like active. Like I can't not be active because I'm in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Hashimoto has really shown me where my boundaries are and forced me to listen to my body. But prior to that, I pushed so hard that it broke.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's just giving yourself space, like trying to live up to either a standard of who I was 9 months prior, or a standard of what society says, or a standard of, if I just figure out the formula, like this should be the result. When that doesn't happen, like move on sometimes. those are the advice that I would give myself in that situation. When I was acute, I think it's just like, don't be afraid of whatever it looks like to get healthy. I didn't want to get medicated. I didn't want to do a lot of things. Like I said, I didn't even want to share with my family what was going on. I just was like, all right, well, I'll just chin up and it'll like resolve itself. And I think that mostly came out of a place of pride and fear. So,
Mm,
like, don't do that either.
that's a good
So
point. Yeah.
those are the things I would tell myself.